I'm going to talk about my history, my story, and I have to say, first of all, that genocide that happened in my country was not spontaneous an event. It was prepared for decades, and the final solution was in 1994. So that time I was 18 years old, and I lost my parents and my four sisters. I have a picture I want to share with you. If Kate can help and put the picture on yeah, this is the one. They were killed in the 14th of April 1994. And my four sisters, you can see this picture spent almost 4 years in the bush. So that's why you cannot see people very well. So so bear with me about this one. So, but in total, because in Africa we live in a very social style. So when you talk about your family, it's not only your mother and sister and brothers, but it's all cousins and all people that you know that are really related to your family. And in total, I lost 80 members of my family the time of genocide. It's a big loss. So, in terms of history, all started with the colonization in the beginning of 19th century, where they called Rwanda was colonized by Germany first, and after the First World War, the Belgian took over, and the two countries, the two colonial masters, they have one thing in common. One thing in common they have is divide and rule politics, which have been of the root cause of what happened to us and to our families in 1994. Rwanda was inhabited of three categories of people. We have Tutsi, we have Hutu, we have Twa. The Tutsi were cattle herders, and the Hutu, they were farmers, and the Twa, they were hunters in rainforests in Rwanda and other neighboring countries. So these were not ethnic group or racial groups because we shared the same culture, the same language, and same belief. We have one God. So there were no very distinct difference between us. But when the colonial masters came, so the existing categories were made racial. And the division started from there. The seed of division that planted by colonial masters resisted. And the mistake we made as the Rwandans, we accepted that we're different and we killed each other. So the Tutsi, at that time, when the colonial masters came, they tried to resist on the colonial politics, which become bad thing for them because they started to ask the Hutu to raise up, and most of them were killed. Others were made refugees in neighboring countries. But at some point of time, the borders were closed, and some people couldn't really leave the country. And these are people who've been persecuted for like 30 years, up to 1994. 1 million of Tutsis were wiped out. My father managed to escape in 1993, but he left his fiancée behind, who 2 years later, my mother joined my father in Burundi. This is the south neighboring country, in south of Rwanda. So they both managed to cross the borders and they met again in Burundi. That was really good news. Of course, the bad news, they were living in refugee camps. But also they were married in refugee camps, and then I was born in 1976. Unfortunately, my father 2 years later died in and he left mother with all life condition in refugee camp. She was pregnant of the second child, my sister, but 91 year later, because she left her parents and many of her relatives in Rwanda, she decided to come back, even if the conditions of Tutsi living in Rwanda was really um, not very conducive. But she decided to leave Burundi and come back to Rwanda. So when we came back, we went to um, our grandma and grandpa house. We lived there for more than 3 years. And in 1981, my mother married again. My sister, who was born after my father died, she stayed at my grandfather's house, and then I went to live with my mother. I didn't know that he was not my biological father, and I came to know that through a neighbor. And I think, and that time was it became much more harder for me because my mother never told me the whole story, and it was really a very hard time with me, and I had to ask, who is my father? Where is he? What happened to him? But this was really, I didn't know that this is really something my mother didn't want really to hear, and it was really uh, something that she was feeling that I would be told when I would be adult enough. In the region where we were living in, at school, we experienced a great discrimination as a Tutsi children. We were humiliated by teachers and and we were asked each and every morning to stand up. And sometimes, because we've even well even minority in class were used as a teaching materials, and they were saying that how many Tutsis we are in this class. We are five, and people learn how to count five. But this was not bad yet. What is very bad is that it's the comment made by teachers how these are Tutsis, and that time the Tutsi were not well dehumanized, have to be called the cockroaches and snakes. And what the teachers comment were that these are not these are cockroaches, these are snakes, and this the teachers made us to be looked by our colleagues as enemies, because this was a word from a teacher, and people and our colleagues really they all believed that. But we didn't know what is going on, because I remember when I went back home, I was crying. I didn't know, and I was asking my mother, why you choose to become a Tutsi? And she didn't really, I didn't have a response from her. Yes, I was very young and very ignorant. When the event I remember is that the Tutsi continued to be persecuted. I remember in 1991 when the genocide was tried in the north of country, where 700 people were killed and they wiped out all families. One of my mother's colleague, because my mother, she was a primary school teacher, and her colleague, her name is Savera. She came home crying. She was very confused, and she said that her family were completely wiped out. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't really believe someone in one night can come and kill the whole family, father, mother, brothers, and sisters, and that time. So the other incident was 1 year later when my colleague, his name is Anselme, um, we were at school together, and he got the message that his family and his entire family was wiped out, and this include his mother further and all the and he had two brothers and one sister, and that time also was very hard to believe it. But he was crying. We've been supporting him as young kids, but my understanding on that was very low. I understood it in 1994, which was my time to lose my family. On 7th of April, I wake up in the morning and I heard that the plane that was carrying the former president, who actually was shot, and the president died in the plane. I was very happy because I thought that this is the person who been really persecuting our family, who have been preparing and all the execution and imprisonment and the torture. So I thought that this is going to the end. But this was really different because my stepfather, when he heard about it, because I heard this before them, I went to their door and knocked to ask them they heard this information. What his response was totally different, and I was really bit confused. So he said that now they're gonna kill us all. He said it in my language, noneho baratumaze. That said they're gonna kill us all, and no one will actually survive. This was true because two to 3 hours later, all roadblocks were everywhere in the street. No chance to escape at all. The militias and the military people, they were all over in the street, and they were stopping all Tutsis to escape everywhere they go. They start killing people. We had a meeting at home to discuss what to do. My mother advised me to leave home because she was believing that probably they're looking for boys, and she said that probably I can remain with the 4 sisters because my mother had 4 children with my stepfather, and those were all they were all girls, and she said that because you are only boy here, probably you'll be the one to be targeted. So I was given this advice by my mother to go and hide at my colleague and friend Peter, who was like 100 or 200 meters from my house. And I went, he hid me in his underbed. And my family used to give money to the militias when they come to attack. And this saved them for 1 week. The following week, that's how they came, was the final one. But in between, this family was very poor. They were they couldn't have 3 meals a day, only 1 meal. I was not used to that. I was always hungry. My mother knew that, and she used to come and sneak during the night to bring me food and share with me the food and encourage me. That was very helpful. And for a whole week, I was very, very encouraged, and I had the hope that this will finish. And it was really a bit different on the 13th of April When she came with only fruit, beans, um, is passion fruits and beans. The passion fruits because we used to have a big garden in the back of our house where we used to grow the passion fruits and the beans. She knew that I don't like beans and vegetables, but she came at that time. She was totally different because she came very tired and hopeless, very quiet, and I couldn't really understand it. And she couldn't say anything to me. And she looked at my eyes. She said, "Please, I know you don't like this food, but please have a courage because this is what will remain in our store. Because the militias for whole week they've been coming and we've been feeding them. There's nothing remain at the home." I started crying, but I had meal with my mother. I didn't know that would be last meal with her. And she looked at my eyes and she said that my son uzao mugabo, which means be a man. If we survive, if I don't survive to support you, be a man. To be a man in my language is to encourage you. Your son is nothing to do with the sex, but or the gender. It's about encouraging someone that in difficult time they have to stand up. She knew probably because she feels she will be dying. I couldn't really. Um, I was completely confused. My and this was true because the next day the militias attacked my home and they killed my mother, my stepfather, and four sisters. I could hear their voices until they finished them. I will never forget their voices, and these voices always come back to me when I think about them, especially my sister who were crying, talking, and pronouncing my name. I left. I stayed at Peter's house, who accepted to hide me. He's a hero for me. I spent another week there, and then he we had a lot of attacks, and he had to help me to leave my village where they know me, and I ran away to um, because um, my mother's sister married a Hutu guy. I went to see him if he can help me. I arrived there. It was really very hard because he had to protect my auntie. And when I went there, he gave me his identity card and say, "Please go and tell them that you're my son." This was a little bit helpful because I could I crossed the roadblocks. I went to the uh, south of the country, and the genocide ended after 3 months. I was still running, and I'm sorry I don't have to. I will never go into details of what happened afterward. I would like to stop by here by saying that the genocide has been a lesson for us. I survived this genocide because someone have decided to be different to what his family was doing. Peter was a good person, was my friend, but his brother was the head of militias, and he decided to be different from his brother. All the time, we have to remember that we are human and we are all connected. Peter, who didn't lose his humanity, I can see his brother was really doing things unhuman way. But we need to, if we could have more Peters in my country, more survivors will be alive today. So thank you very much for listening to me. I would like to take your questions, if you have questions or your comments. And I have the last time I gave, 10 years ago, when I gave my testimony to Shaw Foundation was 5 hours testimony. I don't want to take all that time, but I would like to get your questions if you have questions. And I would like to, at the end, if you, Katie, allow me, I will talk more about my work and what I do. And probably you can have more questions later, but it depends on how Kate is organizing this interview. Thank you very much.
Freddy, thank you so much for sharing such a personal and painful story. I just really want to acknowledge the gift that you've given to us and that you give to the world through your work by sharing your testimony of what happened in Rwanda and your own story, and also all your colleagues who do that same work. So powerful. And I know that you do it so that you hope that people learn and it doesn't happen in other places. Could you tell us a little bit about storytelling and why you as a group have decided that that's how you want to make the changes that you want to see?
Yeah, as Katie, you already say that I work for Aegis Trust, and which is running the Kigali Genocide Memorial. This is a memorial where more than 250,000 victims of genocide are buried. It's a memorial that teach about the history of Rwanda. But the question is, the history of genocide, what the place it has in the present and the future. We talk about genocide, but we want to know that we have to say that people who survived, the perpetrators and the rescuers, they have a story to tell in order to give clarity to this the history and what happened in Rwanda. So the storytelling methodology were used because for two things. One, in our education about our history, it's really culturally appropriate because the oral story, this is actually what Rwanda is. We don't use, for decades, there's no culture of reading and writing. So we use the oral stories to talk about the past. And secondly, it's about all the storytelling methodology that it was because we faced a very big challenge in my country right after genocide. The survivors and perpetrators, they find themselves living together in the same village. They are not Tutsi land, they are not Hutu land. They're all living together. So even the children, they go to school together in one class. You will find children of perpetrators and children of survivors. And how do you, when we talk about genocide, how do we talk about it? What message we give to children, and make sure this message doesn't bring collective blame to the Hutu and perpetrator children because they're innocent. what kind of message that we give to children that's not bringing more anger to survivors' children. But also we have to remember that those teachers, they either belong to one side or another. Either they belong to the side of perpetrators, or they belong to the side of, uh, of survivors. So the stereotype that goes on into classroom. But the reason why we choose the storytelling methodology and the value each and every one voice is that when you tell a story, it's a real story, and people listen to you. And this is not really a teacher standing in front of children talking about how people came with machete and killed people. But the storytelling methodology became much more inclusive. And what we realized in our teaching way, we find out the children, when they share their stories, they kind of, there's a build-up of empathy between them. People get an opportunity to tell about their grief, their their pain, and we have seen that in this classroom, people really feel the pain of others. That's what's brought actually peaceful listening into the classroom, rather than it's narrated by teachers. It's very interactive in our teaching methodology, and this came as a response to um, uh, to our education system in Rwanda, because even the Ministry of Education didn't know how to start and where to start this history of genocide. And when we started it, the story we choose, the story we share with children, and the way the children themselves they see the role models into those stories. We try to share the stories that develop a critical thinking, the empathy, and the personal responsibility. And then you can see in the classroom, they're building a trust between them instead of creating a more division. And then I think this was really the right methodology at the right time in Rwanda as a post-genocide country. And this was appreciated by the government because it came as a response to their challenge of how to teach about the history. And then it was embedded into the national curriculum. It was embedded in a way that was very innovative. It was done in a way that it is into the all subject, even if you teach about biology, um, um, history, mathematics, and then there's an element of peace in that way, but also in all levels, pre-primary, primary, and secondary level. So we find out in our country, 80,000 teachers in my country, now they are ambassadors of peace, which is very, very important. And in the way they teach it, they share their stories, because we keep saying that everyone in this country have a story, and each and every story can teach your fellow teachers, or can be a lesson for your children, or stories of children can be a lesson to teachers, which is very, very important for us.
Thanks, Freddy. I just want to say that there's been a huge number of messages coming in sending love and thanking you for sharing your story, and just to let everybody know that I'll make sure that we get a copy of this to Freddy afterwards, so he can read all your beautiful messages rather than me telling you them now. But thank you, everyone, for responding with such love.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, Freddie, at the beginning of your story about the genocide kind of starting with colonization. And I know that in the recovery, you've also used government initiatives have been rooted in Rwandan culture rather than using the sort of colonial ways of sorting things out. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that and how important it's been. I'm thinking of initiatives like Gacaca courts.
Yeah.
If you could tell people a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Right after genocide, we learned the lesson because unfortunately, genocide happened in this country. Nothing good about genocide, definitely, because it took lives of our relatives. But it happened. We cannot change the past. But it became a lesson for us. We learned that because when genocide happened here, the UN peacekeepers, they were in Rwanda, but didn't do anything. So many meetings in the UN Security Council, they were gathered to talk about Rwanda, but the result was not to protect Rwanda. And instead, what happened in this country was happened in the watch of the world. And even the UN itself, they knew what was going on, but they didn't react or didn't protect people in my country. So after genocide, we thought that let's have our home solutions, not looking for the solutions that come from outside, especially in justice system, because in this country, either if you are a Tutsi, the genocide left no professionals in my country. If you're a Tutsi, you are killed as a lawyer, or if you're not a Tutsi and you're on the side of Hutus, you're in exile, for example. But this country, after genocide, we didn't have professionals, we didn't have lawyers. And what we had here, we had survivors crying for justice. And this country, we had so many priorities, including raising up economy, raising up and respond to the cry of survivors on justice system. We didn't have teachers, we didn't have doctors, because many of them have been involved in genocide. So particularly on the side of justice, we had so many suspects of genocide. We had 125,000 of them in prisons around the country. And if we go through the normal inherited European system of justice, where you have lawyers and we have a courts, they have to sit, they have to make all the long judgment. That was really, will take more than 200 years to finish the last case. We had to come back on our tradition to see how we used to resolve our conflict. And we had what we call Gacaca. Gacaca is one of the Gacaca is a sort of a type of a grass that when it grow, it form a kind of a carpet under the tree. So it used to be the wise people, when a community did wrong to another community, the wise people come together and sit down under the tree and resolve that conflict. That's what we gain again. Of course, we are living in today's time. It was a hybrid system which used the tradition, but also the modern way of judgment. So it's a time where the whole village become a witness because the genocide happened on daytime and everybody have been observing. There's a time where we say that if you are here in Rwanda at my age, you have a story that I say that because we have seen things, you have seen people killing, we have seen people being killed. So the whole village come, and the suspect of genocide they also brought to the village, and then we is a system where the wise people were selected into the community to be the judges, and then they have to make a judgment to the suspect of genocide. What is very good on that is that the judges, the wise people in the community, integrate people in the community, they were trained, but also was not just punishment. It was also asking the perpetrators to have a courage to confess. And when they confess, their sentence reduced. But also when they confess with survivors close to them, it's also an element of reconciliation. It's an element of telling the truth, because when the people confess, they tell the truth. It was very hard for survivors, definitely, because it's not really a sweet story to hear how your mother was killed or your sister been raped, and this is really very traumatic story. But it was also good on the other hand, because so many people didn't know where their relatives' bodies were thrown or were buried. So they had to, the perpetrators have to tell the truth of what happened and where they buried the bodies, and then the survivors can go exhume those bodies and bury them in dignity. It had an element of truth telling, which is very important. And very important for survivors, because one of the pillars or element of transitional justice is truth, which is combined with a government guarantee to say that this will never happen again to you. Very important for survivors. So this is a system which was supposed to not finish when we follow the classic justice system. Tried in 10 years' time, 2 million cases in my country. And then why it became 2 million cases? Why we had 125 suspects? Why? Because when they were telling the truth, they even told people they corroborated with, and we didn't know that. So when they were telling the truth and say, by the way, in the community with you guys, this person I work with him, so he have to come back and be in my place as well. So we find so many suspects we didn't know. One, because those people who were supposed to denounce them, they died because they were survivors. And then we have a place where there are no survivors, but the entire community can tell what happened. So that's how the number came from 125 to 1,000 to 2 million. So this truth telling was very important, but also gacaca was a product of a tradition, and then was not only punishment, as I said before, but was also restorative of Rwandan's values and Rwandan's relationship in the village.
Thanks, Freddy. I've written how to spell gacaca in the chat for anybody that wants to look it up and learn a bit more. There's lots of questions coming in around how to recover from the trauma. Both what things have you done to turn such a painful childhood into the amazing work and man you are today, and also as a community, what of the things that you've found have been helpful in terms of recovering from trauma?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have to say trauma is still a big challenge for us. It's still a big challenge for survivors. And I found out recently that the even perpetrators and children of perpetrators, they are also traumatized. And so it's very hard to say that we've been through the trauma in this country, because the survivors, they have seen a lot, and they went through all the pain, and it has been now 26 years, and it's really, instead of the trauma reducing, we are seeing the trauma keeping increasing into survivors community. Of course, there is a few things that happened, and that what we're doing, of course. On my case, I was very privileged. Of course, I lost my parents. This was really traumatic. I didn't have anyone to take care of me after 1994 genocide. I was likely to be a street child, because I think that was really possible, and but thank God it didn't happen. I kept listening to my words from my mother that I have to be a man, and I have to go through the challenges. I had the courage to go to school, but getting at a school, what helped me and helped my colleagues, we came together. We knew each other, and we, each and every evening after school, we have to come together and to tell the story of what happened during a day. And we made a group of 10 children, students, and then we elected who would be a man, who would be a father, because we didn't have families, we have 8 families. And that person, and this is very true, which is very helpful, I was a father, and now by becoming, oh, can you hear me? Hello,
Yes,
can you hear me?
I can hear you. Your screen froze a little bit, but we can still hear what you're saying.
Okay. All right. So I became a father and had to take care of 10 children. And I had my wife. Well, it's not really a wife, but that person became a mother. So being responsible of others made me to overcome my own pain and my own suffering, and I become very responsible for that, because I have to check in every time the life of my fellow students and my fellow survivors. And this helped them, because if they have any difficulty, they will come to me and tell me, and then we find a solution together, instead of not having no one to tell, which was really very bad for other students who didn't have that initiative. We created an association. We is still now going on, and they have like a 5,000 students. I was among the founder of this association, and then it was implanted in different places in the schools. This was very helpful, and this family, which is very important, and this family still exists, and I'm still a father of that family. It's artificial family, if you can say, but we're still very close. They are my sisters. And if I get, or my son gets sick, if I'm outside the country, who come to support my wife for the first, they're the ones that the family I formed like 20 years ago. So this is actually what happened, what the power of story sharing and the power of building a trust as a group. That's what's helped. And in Rwanda, we have 15 associations that really support survivors, but it was formed by survivors themselves, which is very important. And by being together. This is my wife actually bringing some coffee because she thinks that I've been talking too much. And thank you, Natasha. so, so I was saying that having survivors coming together was a therapy for them because we ran into the group therapy together by sharing our story. The government put in place some more professional counseling system, which also at some point helps. But I have to say that the trauma is still a big challenge in the survivors community. But also, what is very discouraging is that we can see even the transmission of trauma from parents to the children. And then this is really something we were not ready for that. We thought that we have seen a lot, but we need to save our children. But we are seeing our children are getting more traumatized than we are. So it's a challenge and still a challenge, but we that's how I think that we need to get the world, people from around the world, and bring in the experience and the experts, even to keep supporting each other as a human being.
Thank you, Freddy. Very honest and rich answer there. What in your work you do a lot of talks internationally and working in different countries in Africa and internationally. What are the lessons that the key lessons that you try to teach to people who haven't lived through what you've lived through in terms of recognizing early warning signs or any lessons?
Yeah, what we teach is, a peace education program is that the racism divisions, it exists and it happens around the world, and we know that we need to teach our young generation, and the young generation need to be resistant and resilient to all racism that has happened around the world. They have to build the skills how to question the ideas of the racist ideas. They have to question those. They have to be responsible of what about the responsible for their actions. Even they need to get to the point they can be totally different from those racist ideas. We teach, and what we take to people in different countries, we take our stories. We say that we understand the cost of division and racism and discrimination. The cost of that, you lose your family. But there is good news, is that when it's more easy to be united and do things together than being divided. We have seen in this country, we never, in my country, for 50, 100 years, we never seen the economy booming together because we chose to be together and the economy raised up. We never seen this before. So when you come together, when you work together, it's really the right choice. That's what we teach to different communities, to make a right choice and be together than be divided.
Thank you. Somebody's asking, Freddy, are you living in a safe environment now, and do you have your own family?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. Yes, I feel safe. Definitely, yes, safe. But I'm not. I'm cautious that Rwandans, you can make a mistake again if you don't care and take a lesson from the past. And this is very, very important for me because that's what I'm dedicated to do, is to tell the story of the past. Because if we don't learn from it, if the young generation are not taking responsibility of the past, and then it will be a big miss. And then this is there's a risk to repeat it. So to be fully safe, it will be the time where the young people will be in charge now, be responsible, and choose to make this country more peaceful. Of course, it is happening because we made the choice as Rwandans by talking about reconciliation, come together. This is really the right choice that we take, which give us actually hope that this is happening. And then when we even teach other communities, when so many times you talk about reconciliation, people don't know, "Oh, what do you mean about that?" I remember a group of South Sudanese who've been in the world for like 50 years. What they know is how become a hero and kill 100 or 200 people in another community. When we brought the chiefs, the paramount chiefs from South Sudan, they came here. These are people been encouraging the young people to go and attack the other communities. They came here, they see survivors and the perpetrators come and shake hands and say, "I did bad to this person, but he or she forgave me, given me, and we live together in the same village. We work together, we grow crops together, and that's how we feel that we live in the same life." So the South Sudanese paramount chief were really interested to listen more about this one, but they went back with the message. So what I think, being in safe environment, of course, we live in this world we have, which never been perfect. Of course, we need to be cautious, but I'm not wake up in the morning and think someone will bring machete and cut my neck. That's very important for me. But we have the work still hard, and we need to work hard to reach actually the top 100.
Freddie, we've just got the photo of your family up. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. So I have to say, you've seen like a part of my wife passing here in the screen. This is the good news, and which really make me happy, is that I formed a family. I lost my family, but I'm trying to get a family again and be a man, as my mother said. I have my daughter of 10 years old. Her name is Nalda. Second, 8 years old. Her name Kayla. And my big boy here down, he is 4 years old. And we all say hello today. And they allowed me to give a space at home and can talk to you. And that's really very good. So thank you very much for listening to me.